We met during the winter months, a season I never cared much for until she came into my life. Her name was Arya. She had this calm about her, the kind that quiets every storm. From the very beginning, she understood me in ways I never thought anyone could. We weren't perfect, but we were honest. We talked about everything, dreams, fears, even the kind of home we wanted to grow old in. For years, we were more than just a couple. We were best friends, partners in every sense. Life felt solid. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic or loud. It was slow, subtle. She started coming home later than usual. At first, I assumed work had picked up, and I didn't ask questions. I wanted to be supportive. But as days turned into weeks, I couldn't ignore the change. She stopped greeting me with a smile. Our conversations shortened, then nearly vanished. She'd answer with one-word replies and spend more time looking at her phone than at me. I noticed, but I didn't push. I thought maybe she was going through something and needed space. One night, I made her favorite dinner, lasagna with garlic bread, just like the first meal I ever cooked for her. She barely touched her plate and excused herself before dessert. I sat there alone, trying to convince myself it was just a bad day. But those bad days started stacking up. I stopped hearing her laugh, stopped seeing that sparkle in her eyes when we made plans or shared little moments. The warmth in our home was slowly replaced by silence and distance. I asked her if something was wrong. She said no. I asked again a few days later, softer, more concerned. She just shook her head and walked away. That moment hit hard. It was like watching someone you love slowly fade into someone you don't recognize. I tried giving her space, thinking maybe I was the one overwhelming her. I spent more time outside the house, hoping she might miss me. But every time I returned, it felt colder. I couldn't help but replay every conversation, every decision. Was it something I said? Something I did or didn't do? I started carrying this guilt like a shadow, wondering if I had failed her in some way. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get through. She was there, physically but emotionally, she was gone. I still held on to hope. I believed love meant holding on even when things got hard. I thought all we needed was time, and eventually, she would talk to me, and we'd work it out. But deep down, I think I already knew I was the only one still trying. I started waking up earlier just to catch a moment with her before she left for work, but even then, she barely spoke. A nod, maybe a quiet morning, and then she was gone. I tried not to take it personally. I told myself people go through phases, that it was just stress or burnout. But as days passed, my thoughts turned to concern, and then to worry. I began watching her more closely, not in suspicion, but in confusion. How could someone I loved so deeply become a stranger in our own home? I made efforts. Small ones at first. I left little notes in her bag, reminders that I loved her. I planned a weekend getaway, nothing extravagant, just a quiet cabin outside the city. She declined, said she had too much work. I suggested a dinner out, maybe just a walk together. She smiled faintly, said she was tired, and went to bed early again. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the wall, trying to remember the last time we laughed together. I couldn't. My mind began to spiral. Was there someone else? Was she regretting our marriage? I didn't want to think that way, but something felt undeniably wrong. I remembered how she used to tell me everything, even the smallest details of her day. Now, I didn't know where she went after work or who she spent time with. One night, I heard her whispering on the phone in the kitchen. When I walked in, she ended the call quickly. I asked who it was. She shrugged. Just a friend. That answer stung more than I expected. I didn't accuse her. I wasn't looking for drama. I just wanted honesty. I asked her to talk to me, to tell me if something was wrong. She said I was overthinking, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But her eyes didn't meet mine. Her words felt rehearsed. I couldn't prove anything, and I wasn't even sure what I wanted to prove. All I knew was that I felt alone next to someone I had once trusted with everything. At work, I couldn't focus. I found myself checking my phone constantly, hoping for a text, a message, something from her that would feel normal again. It never came. At night, I'd lie awake, listening to her breathe beside me, wondering where she was in her mind. I tried checking her social media, but everything looked curated, normal, untouched. It was like she had built a wall, and I was standing on the other side, knocking quietly, hoping she'd let me back in. Still, I didn't give up. I told myself love required patience. I held on, believing that whatever this was, we could survive it. But deep down, a voice kept whispering. Maybe I was the only one still holding on. Maybe she had already let go. The morning started like any other. I reached out for her beside me, but the bed was cold. I figured she had left early again, probably for work. I got up slowly, expecting to find a note or maybe hear the shower running, but the house was silent. Too silent. Something felt off. I walked into the kitchen. No breakfast things, no coffee brewing, nothing out of place. Just emptiness. Then I noticed her purse was gone. Her favorite jacket. Her walking shoes from the front door. I opened the closet. Half of her clothes weren't there anymore. I froze. My mind couldn't catch up to what I was seeing. I looked around like maybe she was hiding somewhere, like this was a bad dream I could shake off. Then I saw the message on my phone. It was short. Just one paragraph. No explanation, no emotion. I need time. Please don't try to contact me. I hope one day you'll understand. That was it. No goodbye. No apology. No closure. I sat on the floor, my phone in my hand, my chest heavy. It was like every part of me collapsed at once. I didn't cry at first. I just sat there, stunned, numb. The silence that had been slowly building in our home had now become something final. She was gone. Not for work, not for space. Gone. And I didn't even see it coming, not fully. I had sensed the distance, felt the cold, but I held on to hope that it would pass. Instead, she had already made up her mind. I didn't call her. I stared at her message a dozen times, trying to read between the lines, trying to find meaning in words that felt like a knife to the chest. I replayed every moment of the last few weeks, trying to pinpoint when exactly I lost her. Maybe it wasn't weeks. Maybe it had been longer. Maybe I just hadn't been willing to admit it. I kept telling myself we were just going through something temporary. But now, the truth sat in front of me, sharp and undeniable. I didn't tell anyone that day. I couldn't. How do you explain something like that? How do you say out loud that the person you built a life with just walked away without a fight, without a reason you could understand? I spent hours in silence, just existing in a house that suddenly felt like a stranger's. Her scent lingered on the pillow, her cup was still by the sink, and yet she was nowhere to be found. That night, I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling. The reality settled like dust. She had been gone long before she packed her things. She had just finally made it official. And I was left with a life that no longer felt like mine. The first few weeks were the hardest. I didn't know how to function without her presence, even if that presence had grown distant. I went through the motions, work, meals, sleep. But everything felt hollow. I kept expecting to hear the door open, to hear her voice, even a text. But there was nothing. She had vanished from my life like it never mattered. That hurt more than any argument could have. There was no closure, no conversation, just a clean break that left behind a mess only I had to clean up. I stopped blaming myself after a while. At first, I thought I had failed her, that I wasn't enough, that I missed something critical. But the truth slowly revealed itself through reflection. I had tried. I had asked. I had reached out repeatedly, offering understanding, space, love, anything. And she chose silence. She chose escape over effort. That wasn't on me. I didn't lose her because I stopped loving her. I lost her because she stopped caring to stay. Therapy helped. At first, I hesitated, thinking I could handle it on my own. But speaking to someone who wasn't emotionally attached gave me clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't blind. I was just deeply in love with someone who changed without warning. And sometimes, love isn't enough to keep someone who doesn't want to be kept. The more I spoke, the more I released the weight I'd been carrying. The guilt, the confusion, the shame. I learned to breathe again. I reconnected with parts of myself I had buried. I picked up my camera again, started hiking, met friends I had ignored for months. It wasn't easy. I wasn't always okay. But with each day, I found small pieces of joy that reminded me life hadn't ended. It had simply changed. Slowly, I learned how to enjoy my own company again. I stopped waiting for her to come back, stopped checking my phone at odd hours. The silence, once unbearable, became peaceful. I never got a second message. No apology, no explanation. She disappeared like a chapter that closed mid-sentence. And I had to write my own ending. I realized closure doesn't always come from the person who hurt you. Sometimes, it comes from deciding to heal anyway. I forgave her, not because she asked for it, but because I needed to let go of the pain she left behind. Holding on to bitterness would have only kept me chained to a version of love that was never real at the end. Now, when I think of her, it's not with anger. It's with acceptance. We had something once. Something honest, something deep. But it ended. Not every story ends the way we hope. Some leave us broken so we can learn to rebuild stronger. I still believe in love. I still believe in connection. But next time, I'll recognize the signs. I'll know when to hold on and when to let go. And most of all, I'll remember that I deserve to be loved without having to beg for it.